This is your instructional video for Monday, May 4th. First, let's go ahead and look at your learning goal for today. Your goal is that you can summarize the Renaissance, Protestant Reformation, Age of Absolutism, and the Scientific Revolution. If you thought to yourself right now, can I, in fact, in my own words, summarize each of those four things? Could you do that? That's how you should think about it. Now, by the end of today's lessons, as you do the readings and the comprehension and the questions, you should be able to, in some way, be able to summarize that. And that's your goal. And you can see your assessment, and it should take about 30 minutes. So let me just give you some background information on each of these things, just to give you somewhere to start so that you can, after this, go ahead and do the work on your own. So the first thing is the Renaissance. What was it? Now, the Renaissance, the word Renaissance literally means rebirth. So rebirth, being born new, right? That you know that Western Europe just went through a long time period, about 1,000 years, called the Middle Ages, also known as feudalism. And during this time period, not too much got accomplished. I mean, there wasn't nothing going on, but they had the castles, they had knights, they had nobles, they had lords and vassals and serfs, and they lived this way for 1,000 years. However, by the time they come out of it, they start to go, you know what? What have we been doing? They're looking back to the Greeks and the old Roman Empire, and they're saying they had Aristotle, Socrates, and Plato. They had mathematics going on, philosophy. They had art and architecture. Remember the domes and the arches, the Acropolis, the Colosseum, all of the amazing things, the aqueducts, the technology. And now, for 1,000 years, we've been living under feudalism. It's time for a rebirth. And that's what the Renaissance is about. It's about looking towards art and architecture and mathematics and science and moving forward out of one time period into a new one. So I want you to go ahead and read about that and then answer the 3 questions. Again, can you summarize in your own words what the Renaissance was? And then you're going to have this other thing that's going to be called the Protestant Reformation. Now, during the Middle Ages, there was one entity that was more powerful than any other entity. Do you remember what it was? The Catholic Church. It didn't matter what kingdom you were a part of. If I was in my kingdom, your kingdom, another kingdom, 50 other kingdoms. We might have been against each other. We didn't like each other. But there was one thing we had in common. We were all Catholic. The Catholic Church would have unified all of these places. Now, at the Protestant Reformation, when you're getting into around the 1400s or so, there's going to be a number of individuals, primarily Martin Luther and John Calvin, who are going to rise up against the power of the Catholic Church. They're going to say the Catholic Church is too powerful. They have too much land, too much money. They're not letting people get the Bible or read the Bible for themselves. And there was a number of other policies that they didn't like from the Catholic Church. And so what Martin Luther did is he wrote them up on a piece of paper, 95 of them, in fact. They were called his 95 Theses. And he took that and he nailed it onto the church door. And he said, no more. We need to move away from this sort of corrupt, too much of a powerful entity to something more organic and simple. People should be able to read the Bible for themselves. People should be able to have a personal relationship with God rather than having to go through this huge organization or this church. And so that's going to be the Protestant Reformation. And it's important historically because it's a turning point. And then we see Christianity sort of split off in these 2 directions. Even today, we still have that sort of split off between the Catholic Church and Protestants. And then you're also going to have this thing called the Age of Absolutism. And what's going on is during the Middle Ages, you had all these little kingdoms, but then the kingdoms are going to start to come together in these bigger groups, even countries like what we see today on the maps, France or Germany or Italy or Spain or Portugal. And those are going to be formed by smaller kingdoms becoming bigger kingdoms, and these leaders are going to take over the entire country, the entire kingdom, and they're going to be called absolute leaders or monarchs. Why? Because they have absolute control. They can make the laws, they can judge the laws, and they can enforce the laws, and no one else tells them what to do. And so that's the Age of Absolutism. Read about that and answer the questions. And then you're going to have the Scientific Revolution. Remember, you had the plague, and the plague killed about half of Europe. People are going to realize we don't know anything about how things work. We can't even stop a disease from killing our own people. And so they are going to begin to move towards looking back at mathematics and science. figuring out how does the world work, how do the stars and the planets work, and the sun and the moon, and medicine. And so you're going to get guys like Isaac Newton, Nicholas Copernicus, Galileo Galilei, and a number of other individuals who are going to move to make science and mathematics and laws written and experimented upon. You're going to get the scientific method that's going to come out of this. And so people are going to begin to document these things to move forward in that as well. So please read about the scientific revolution and answer those questions. And by the end of this, you should be able to summarize in your own words each of these 4 major turning points.